Level 1. The Garage Tinkerer. You're 15 years old, and the car is a 2001 Volkswagen Golf Mark IV you bought for €500 from a classmate's older brother who'd crashed it into a curb hard enough to bend the front wheel. It runs, barely, and it pulls slightly to the left at speed. To everyone else, it's scrap with a registration. To you, it's the only thing you've ever wanted to fix. Your workspace is a wooden shed behind your house that your father used to store firewood in. You clear it out over a weekend, run an extension cord from the kitchen window, and drag the Golf in using a rope tied to your neighbor's tractor. You don't understand anything mechanical yet, and that's the honest starting point. You watch tutorials on a cracked phone screen propped against a paint can. You pause, go try the thing, come back confused, rewind. You round off a strut bolt and spend an entire Saturday drilling it out. You cross 2 vacuum lines reconnecting the intake, and the engine idles at 400 revolutions per minute until you trace it back and swap them. Every wrong move teaches you something a video alone never could. The first real modification is a catback exhaust. You spend 2 weeks comparing brands you can't afford, and one afternoon bolting on the cheapest one that doesn't look terrible. The note deepens instantly, and even though the power gain is close to nothing, the sound alone makes the car feel like yours for the first time. The next project is coilovers. You watch every install video twice. The first time you compress a spring with a borrowed tool, it slips and clips your knuckle hard enough to bruise. You slow down, follow the steps properly, and get the car sitting exactly where you pictured it. You drive around the block 4 times just to feel it. This is where every tuner actually starts. Not in a shop, not with proper training, in a cold shed with the wrong tools and a stubbornness that won't quit until the thing works. Level 2. The Meat Regular. You're 17 now. The Golf has been reworked more times than you can count. New wheels, a lip you painted yourself, that's fine unless you look closely. A suspension setup you've adjusted 4 separate times. You know this car the way you know your own hands. You found the local car meet scene about 8 months ago, a supermarket car park on Friday nights with 30-some cars and a culture that doesn't explain itself to newcomers. The first time you showed up, you parked at the far edge, unsure if you belonged. A guy with a wide-body Subaru walked over and asked about your alignment setup, and you talked for 40 minutes straight. The meets teach you things the shed never could. You see builds that reframe what's possible. You learn the difference between something that's genuinely well done and something that just looks expensive. Someone points out your camber is aggressive in a way that's actually hurting your tire wear, not helping your stance. Someone else explains why your brake setup needs upgrading before you drop the car any lower. This knowledge moves through conversation in a way nothing else replicates. You also learn the culture's honesty. Nobody softens their opinion of a bad build, because softening it would be a worse insult than the critique itself. When someone bothers correcting you, it means they think you're capable of doing it right. You start receiving feedback as information instead of an attack. Your build gets quieter, more deliberate, less about noise, and more about correctness. You're starting to understand that restraint is the harder skill. Level 3. The Track Day Driver. You're 19, and someone from the meets invites you to a track day at a real circuit with instructors available for beginners. You go in assuming you'll be fast. You are not. Your first session lasts 20 minutes with an instructor riding shotgun for the opening laps. He barely speaks. He watches. At the end, he gives you 3 corrections. You're braking too late and locking up. You're not rotating the car through slow corners. Your inputs are jerky, and the car is reacting to your nervousness more than your intention. You spend the rest of the day isolating one fix at a time. Driving a modified car on public roads and driving that same car on a circuit are 2 entirely different disciplines. The gap between owning an instrument and actually playing it. You rebuild the Golf's priorities after that day. Better brake pads rated for sustained heat, fresh fluid, and tires with real grip, because grip underpins everything else you might add. You strip weight next. Rear seats out, spare tire out, sound deadening peeled from the floor. None of it matters on the road, and all of it matters here. The car sharpens, and so do you at the same time, and there's no way to separate the 2 processes. This is the part nobody explains before you live it. A faster car with an undeveloped driver just makes the same mistakes quicker. A sharper driver in a stock car is already finding time that upgrades alone can't manufacture. Level 4. The Serious Builder. You're 22. The Golf is gone, sold to a 16-year-old who reminds you exactly of yourself. And the money, plus 2 years of part-time work, goes toward a Nissan 200SX with a factory turbocharged straight six under the hood, a platform with real headroom. This build is different because now you understand what building properly actually means. Every part exists for a reason. The turbo gets upgraded because the stock unit runs out of airflow past your target output. The fuel system follows because more air demands more fuel. The intercooler follows that because heat-soaked air loses density, and density is horsepower. Nothing goes on without a reason chained to the last decision. You tune the engine management yourself for the first time, borrowing a laptop and software from a friend 3 years further into this than you are. You spend 2 weekends just learning the interface before touching a single parameter. The first time you make a real adjustment and watch the data confirm it worked, something clicks permanently. The engine is a closed system of inputs and outputs, and the tune is the translation layer between them. You've been a spectator in this process until now. You're finally the one making the calls. The car lands at 340 horsepower on a conservative tune, verified on a dyno at a shop you trust, not a number you're guessing at. The drive home afterward is the most focused half hour you've ever spent behind a wheel. Level 5. The known name. You're 25, and you've built a reputation in your regional scene. Not famous, but recognized. People know your car at events before they know your name. Builders above your level start asking your opinion because you've clearly done real work and asked the right questions along the way. You start helping others, unofficially, as a favor, or because a problem is too interesting to ignore. A friend's Subaru has been tuned by 2 different shops and still surges under boost. You spend a Sunday with a laptop and a wideband sensor working the problem methodically, and you find a boost leak so minor it took 2 professionals to overlook it. The car finally runs clean. You realize diagnosing is a distinct skill from building. Building is understanding how components should fit together. Diagnosing is understanding why they didn't. And that requires pattern recognition earned only by having seen enough failures to recognize the shape of one. You've seen enough now. You put together a front-wheel drive turbo build that reaches 480 horsepower at the wheels on a chassis never designed for it, developing your own traction solution after the car nearly put you into a guardrail twice during testing. The build gets picked up by an online publication that reaches people outside your country entirely, and for a week, your messages don't stop. Level 6. The professional tuner. You're 28, and you're doing this for actual money now, consistently, which is a different thing from occasionally getting paid. A rented bay, shared dyno time, a laptop running 5 different tuning platforms, a waitlist stretching a month out. Professional work reveals something a home garage never can. When it's your own car, you accept risk on your own terms. When it's someone else's car and someone else's money, the standard becomes absolute. No exceptions. The gap between a tune that technically works and a tune that's actually correct becomes the thing you obsess over. Customers bring you builds assembled cheaply and tuned worse, wanting them fixed. Some are salvageable. Some are genuinely unsafe, and you have conversations people don't want to have, holding a line even when it costs you the job. You've seen enough destroyed engines from careless tuning to know exactly where that line sits. You develop specialties, forced induction retrofits on naturally aspirated platforms, and older Japanese chassis most shops won't touch because the knowledge required isn't worth acquiring to them. That knowledge becomes your edge, and you price accordingly. The scene sees you differently now, not as someone with one good build, but as someone with an actual practice, a standard applied consistently rather than a single lucky outcome. Level 7. The respected shop. You're 32, and you finally have a real shop. 2 lifts, your own dyno, and 2 full-time technicians, one of whom you trained from nearly nothing and who's already better at 24 than you were at that age, because he had you to learn from. Your reputation now extends past the region. People drive hours to reach you. You've turned away builds that weren't right for reasons the customer couldn't see, and that conversation never gets easier, but it protects something more valuable than the invoice. Cars carrying your tune start winning at local time attack events, and one holds a class record at your regional track. You start teaching formally, running workshops out of the shop and speaking at meets. You write up technical guides that circulate among people trying to learn the way you had to learn, alone, through trial and error. Knowledge that took you 15 years to accumulate moves through others in a fraction of that time, because you're organizing it instead of making each person rediscover it independently. It's the most satisfying part of the work that doesn't involve a dyno graph. The business side turns out harder than the mechanical side ever was. Invoices, insurance, equipment failing at the worst possible moment, staff needing things you can't always give. You solve it the same way you solve engine problems, systematically, assuming every issue has an answer once you understand it correctly. Level 8. The Builder of Legends. You're 37, and the car sitting in your bay is going to set a record. Not maybe, not hopefully. You know this because you've run the numbers hundreds of times, because every component was chosen without a single compromise, because you've tested every variable you can control, and because the driver behind the wheel has competed internationally. The car is a fourth-generation Toyota Supra, stripped down to its legal minimum, rebuilt around an engine you assembled yourself over 8 months, because nobody else building these knows this specific combination the way you do. Record day arrives, and the car runs. But the first attempt exposes something the dyno never revealed, a fuel delivery hesitation right at the top of fourth gear under sustained load. You fix it that same night. The second day, the car runs perfectly clean, and the record falls by a margin that surprises even you. You don't post about it right away. You drive home, sit at your kitchen table, and think about that wooden shed with the extension cord running through the window and the phone propped against a paint can. The distance between that moment and this one is nearly impossible to measure, and yet every step that connects them is completely traceable. Every mistake became knowledge. Every car taught you something the last one couldn't. Level 9. The Legacy. You're 41. The shop has trained 9 technicians who now run their own practices. A car you built sits in a motorsport museum overseas. You were invited to speak at an international technical conference and spent 35 minutes in front of engineers from manufacturers whose cars taught you everything you know. You still do the work yourself, not all of it. The business demands too much of your time for that now. But the builds that matter most, you stay close to. Because the moment you fully step back, the knowledge starts drifting from real to theoretical. And theoretical knowledge in a working shop is a liability you won't carry. Somewhere right now, a 15-year-old is standing in a cold shed with a wrecked car and a phone propped against a paint can, about to get it wrong the first time, about to round off a bolt and feel like giving up. They'll figure it out eventually. Most do. A few of them will reach where you are. Fewer still will go further, because they'll learn everything you learned, and then they'll learn the things you never got the chance to.